Now, let's see how to build a strong support network. In today's competitive world, building a strong support network is vital for personal and professional growth. A support network provides valuable resources, guidance, and encouragement on our journey to success. In this subchapter, we will explore the power of networking and leveraging social media and online communities, and the significance of LinkedIn as a powerful tool for professional growth. Networking is the art of cultivating relationships and connections with individuals in our field or industry. It opens doors to new opportunities, collaborations, and access to valuable insights and knowledge. Now, you might wonder how to create a strong network. Simple as that. Attend industry events, conferences, and networking meetups to meet up like minded individuals and potential mentors. Build and maintain genuine connections. It is key to harnessing the power of networking. Leveraging social media and online communities. Join relevant online communities. Identify and join online communities, forums, and groups that are specific to your industry or profession or interests. These can be platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook groups, Reddit, or specialized industry forums. Look for groups with active discussions and a focus on sharing insight and knowledge. Actively participate in discussions. Engage in discussions within these online communities. Share your opinions, ask thoughtful questions, and contribute meaningful insights to ongoing conversations. By showcasing your expertise or interest, you'll start building your credibility and attract the attention of other professionals. Ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions when you're seeking guidance or information on certain topics. This not only helps you to gain insights from others, but also demonstrate your willingness to learn and engage. Others in the community are likely to offer their expertise and establish connections with you. Share valuable insights. Share your own insights, experiences, and knowledge within the community. When you provide valuable information, others will recognize your expertise and view you as a valuable resource. This can help you stand out and establish your presence in the community. Stay connected and engaged. Consistency is key. Regularly check in on the communities you've joined and participate in discussions. This ongoing engagement shows that you are committed and genuinely interested in the topics. Respond to comments on your posts and engage with others' content as well. Offer support. Be proactive in offering help and support to others. If someone asks a question you can answer, provide a thoughtful response. If someone shares a success, congratulate them. Being a positive and supportive member of the community can help you build strong relationships. We told you at the beginning of this module about LinkedIn as being a leading platform for professionals to network, showcase their expertise, and explore career opportunities. Let's explore how you can use it at its best. Well, first you need to create a compelling LinkedIn profile with a professional photo, well-crafted summary, and a comprehensive history. But we will develop further on. The profile photo. Choose a high-quality professional headshot as your profile photo. Make sure the photo is well lit, clear, and focused on your face. Dress in appropriate attire for your industry. A friendly and approachable smile can help create a positive impression. Avoid using casual or stylized photos. Professional headline. Your headline appears right under your name, and it is one of the first things people see. Use this space to convey your current role, skills, or focus. Aim for a concise and engaging headline that immediately communicates for your professional identity. A well-crafted summary is a chance to introduce yourself and highlight your expertise. Craft a brief, compelling summary that covers your background, key skills, accomplishments, and aspiration. Use the first person to make it more personable. Tailor your summary to reflect your unique value proposition and what you bring to the table. Then, when we speak about work history, you should list your relevant work experiences in reverse chronological order. For each position, include the company name, your job title, the dates you worked there, and the brief descriptions of your responsibilities and achievements. Focus on quantifiable results and use action verbs to describe your contributions. Tailor your description to showcase how your experience aligns with your industry and professional goals. Skills and endorsement. Highlight your skills and area of expertise. Select skills that are relevant to your industry and showcase your strengths. Encourage colleagues and connections to endorse your skills. These endorsements add credibility to your profile. Regularly engage with your connections content by liking, commenting, and sharing. This demonstrates your interest in their work and helps foster meaningful connections. Actively seek out new connections in your industry to expand your network. Last but not least, keep it updated. Regularly update your profile to reflect your latest accomplishments, skills, and experiences. An outdated profile can give the impression that you are not actively involved in your professional field. Remember that your LinkedIn profile serves as an online representation of your professional identity. It's a valuable tool for networking, finding clients, job hunting, and building your personal brand. Taking the time to create a compelling and comprehensive profile can greatly enhance your online presence and help you make meaningful connection within your industry. Now it's time for you to act. We challenge you to find 3 online or offline events related to your interests to attend by the end of this year. Enroll and save the date. Then set a personal goal to go back home at the end of the event with a certain number of connections. Follow up. Building a strong support network is a crucial step in advancing our personal and professional growth. Networking provides access to opportunities and the wealth of knowledge, while social media and online communities keep us connected with like-minded individuals worldwide. Among the various platforms, LinkedIn stands out as a powerful tool for showcasing our professional identity and engage with the broader professional community. By embracing the power of networking and leveraging social media platforms like LinkedIn, we can create a robust support network that propels us toward our goals. The connections we forge and nurture in our network will not only offer guidance but also provide us with the support and inspiration needed to excel our endeavors. So, as the quote, networking is not about just connecting people, it's about connecting people with ideas, and people with opportunities by Michel Denay. Let's do it.